The following content may include discussions or topics that could be triggering or upsetting for individuals who have experienced similar traumas. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to another unsettling episode of The Sins of Scientology, where we uncover the darkest secrets and controversies of the Church of Scientology. I'm your host, Sandy McKenna, and along with my co-host, Abraham Ulrich, we delve into one of the most contentious aspects of Scientology, its vehement opposition to psychiatry. In our previous episode, we explored the tragic story of Lisa McPherson, a devoted Scientologist who suffered a severe psychotic breakdown after a minor car accident. Lisa was subjected to Scientology's introspection rundown at the Fort Harrison Hotel. This process tragically ended in her death after 17 harrowing days deprived of medical treatment, held in isolation, and subject to neglect. Her case highlighted the potential dangers of rejecting psychiatric treatment in favor of Scientology's methods, bringing widespread scrutiny and legal challenges to the Church. Today, we'll examine the broader context of Scientology's war on psychiatry. We'll explore the origins of this conflict, the formation and activities of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, and the Church's ongoing campaigns against psychiatric practices and medications. We'll also dive into the personal stories of those affected by Scientology's stance and analyze this deeply entrenched opposition, evolving strategies, and future implications. Before we begin, let's hear from David Miscavige, the current leader of Scientology, and what he has to say about psychiatry.
We're better to begin a year-end review than with our 2006 campaign to break the dark spell cast across Earth by psychiatry. By way of a recap, that campaign was expressly, maybe even diabolically, engineered to ignite both government action and media blizzard. It's also got an internal kicker, our mental health budget adjustment kit, which essentially works like a smart bomb in that it sniffs out psych fuel lines and blows the funding mechanism. And in that way, to put it bluntly, we booby-trap the whole psychiatric ecosystem.
Join us as we uncover the historical, legal, and personal dimensions of this conflict, shedding light on the profound impact it has on individuals, families, and the broader discussion of mental health. This is an episode you don't want to miss as we explore the deep-seated hostility between Scientology and psychiatry, a battle that continues to shape lives and policies to this day.
Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, had a profound and deeply entrenched opposition to psychiatry, which significantly shaped the Church of Scientology's doctrines and practices. Understanding Hubbard's views on psychiatry is crucial to comprehending why the Church has maintained such a vehement stance against the mental health profession for decades. Hubbard's disdain for psychiatry can be traced back to his early life and experiences. Born in 1911, Hubbard grew up during a time when psychiatric treatments such as electroconvulsive therapy and lobotomies were often harsh and invasive. These methods left a lasting negative impression on him, noticeable in his early writings, which revealed skepticism towards conventional medicine and a belief in the power of the mind over the body. In the 1950s, Hubbard published Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, a cornerstone text that laid the foundation for Scientology. In this book, he introduced the concept of the reactive mind, which he claimed was the source of irrational behavior and mental distress. Hubbard posed that through a process called auditing, individuals could clear their reactive mind and achieve a state of clear, free from psychological burdens. Hubbard's rejection of psychiatry was evident in Dianetics. He argued that traditional psychiatric treatments were not only ineffective but also harmful. According to Hubbard, psychiatrists sought to control and suppress individuals rather than truly heal them. This perspective was revolutionary at the time, as it offered an alternative to conventional mental health treatment that appealed to those dissatisfied with psychiatric care. As Scientology evolved from Dianetics, Hubbard's anti-psychiatry stance became even more pronounced. Several foundational principles of Scientology reflect his views. One is the suppressive person, or SP. Hubbard identifies psychiatrists as SPs, individuals who are hostile to Scientology and its goals. According to Hubbard, SPs, including psychiatrists, actively sought to undermine and destroy positive efforts to improve mental health. Second, the tone scale. In Scientology, the tone scale is a tool used to measure an individual's emotional state. Hubbard placed psychiatrists and psychiatric patients low on this scale, suggesting that psychiatry failed to elevate individuals to a higher state of being. Third, the E-meter. A device used during auditing sessions was presented as a superior tool for diagnosing and treating mental distress compared to traditional psychiatric methods. Hubbard claimed that the E-meter could detect and address the traumatic memories that psychiatrists overlook or misunderstood. Scientology refers to these memories as engrams. Fourth is the Citizens Commission for Human Rights, CCHR. In 1969, Hubbard helped establish the CCHR, a watchdog organization dedicated to exposing and combating abuses in mental health. The CCHR's campaign against psychiatric practices was a direct manifestation of Hubbard's enduring opposition to psychiatry. Hubbard's view on psychiatry has left a lasting legacy on Scientology. The Church's ongoing campaigns against psychiatric treatment and its promotion of alternative mental health practices continue to be rooted in Hubbard's original teachings. Scientologists are often encouraged to reject psychiatric diagnosis and medications, instead relying on auditing and other Scientology-based methods for mental and emotional well-being. L. Ron Hubbard's deep-seated opposition to psychiatry was a driving force behind the development of Scientology's foundational principles. His beliefs, shaped by the early 20th century psychiatric practices, led him to create a system that positioned itself as a radical alternative to conventional mental health care. As a result, Scientology's stance on psychiatry remains one of its most defining and controversial aspects, influencing its teachings, practices, and public campaigns to this day.
In the early days of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard's writings and speeches were filled with sharp critiques of psychiatry, setting the stage for the Church's long-standing opposition to the field of mental health. In his seminal book, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, published in 1950, he first laid out his critique in detail. He argued that traditional psychiatric methods were not only ineffective, but also harmful. In his opening chapter of Dianetics, Hubbard declares psychiatry to be the most unworkable methods conceivable. By the fifth chapter, he goes even further, suggesting that a psychiatrist might, in a desperate attempt to solve a problem, kill or permanently damage a pre-clear. His disdain for psychiatry deepens in Chapter 7, where he asserts the primary assumption of psychiatry is that man is an animal. To Hubbard, psychiatry dehumanized individuals and missed the mark on addressing the root causes of mental distress. A year later, in 1951, Hubbard's Science of Survival continued this line of thought. Here, he denounces psychiatry as a harmful force to society. He accuses psychiatrists of being bent on destroying Dianetics and criticizes the field for twisting Freud's discoveries about insanity and neurosis to harmful ends. Hubbard antagonists to his revolutionary ideas, positioning Dianetics as a far superior alternative. In the same year, Hubbard's advanced procedures and axioms further hammers home his critique. He describes psychiatric treatments such as shock and surgery as brutalizing in the extreme and contrasts these methods with auditing, which he claims restores an individual's control over their mind. According to Hubbard, while psychiatry seeks to dominate the mind, auditing is portrayed as a more humane and effective approach. Hubbard's disdain for psychiatry was not confined to his writings. His speeches, many of which were recorded, also served as platforms for his vocal criticism. In a 1967 speech titled The Role of Psychiatry in Society, he labeled psychiatry not as a healing profession, but as a criminal enterprise masquerading as one. He condemned some practices like electroshock and lobotomies as barbaric, a sentiment that, while aligning with some modern critiques, contrasts sharply with the evolving practices in mental health. Another notable speech, Psychiatry, the Industry of Death, from 1971, reiterates Hubbard's belief that psychiatry is a destructive force. He accuses psychiatrists of having no proper understanding of the human mind and describes their treatments as nothing but torture. This rhetoric is particularly striking coming from a science fiction writer like Hubbard. Numerous videos accessible through Scientology's official channels capture Hubbard's critiques of psychiatry. These videos range from public lectures to interviews and consistently showcase Hubbard's strong condemnation of psychiatric practices. For instance, in a 1966 filmed interview, An Introduction to Scientology, he emphasizes the harmful effects of psychiatric treatments compared to Scientology's methods. Another documentary, The Shrinking World of L. Ron Hubbard, includes segments where Hubbard elaborates on his views, condemning psychiatry as a pseudoscience designed to enslave individuals. L. Ron Hubbard's profound opposition to psychiatry is evident through his early writings, speeches, and recordings.
L. Ron Hubbard's intense opposition to psychiatry, which remains a fundamental aspect of Scientology's beliefs, appears to have been deeply influenced by his personal experiences and motivations. His aversion to the field seems to have been developed through a combination of early encounters with psychiatric practices, professional struggles, and personal health issues. Born in 1911, Hubbard entered a world where psychiatric treatments like electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, and lobotomies were common but often harsh and criticized for their brutality. While there's no direct evidence that Hubbard himself underwent psychiatric treatment, the prevailing awareness of these severe methods could have shaped his early views on the profession. In the 1930s, Hubbard entered George Washington University studying engineering. Although he did not complete his degree, his exposure to scientific and technical subjects may have contributed to the skepticism towards psychiatry. He perceived it as lacking the empirical rigor he valued, contrasting it sharply with what he considered the scientific basis of his theories. Before the creation of Scientology, Hubbard's career was focused on writing pulp fiction. Despite some success, he never achieved the level of recognition or financial stability he aspired to. It is speculated that Hubbard's development of Dianetics and later Scientology was driven by a desire for legitimacy and success, areas where he had previously struggled. By presenting himself as a new mental health science pioneer, he could gain the authority and respect he so vigorously sought. Hubbard also claimed to have suffered from various physical and psychological issues, including severe war injuries from his time in the U.S. Navy. However, these claims are disputed by military records. According to Hubbard, he developed Dianetics as a way to address his ailments, which he believed traditional medicine and psychiatry failed to cure. The narrative not only undermined conventional treatments, but also positioned his methods as superior alternatives. Some biographers and former Scientologists suggest that Hubbard exhibited signs of paranoia and a need for control. Here's a clip from the 1997 UK documentary The Secret Lives, where they talk about Hubbard's phobias.
He had phobias about dust. He had phobias about smells. He had phobias about sounds. So he would hear sounds that weren't there. He would scream at the sound technician. And he would see things that weren't there, and he would scream at the people who were framing the shot. And he would smell smells that weren't there, and he'd have people rinse his clothing some 13 or 15 or however many times.
His writings often portray psychiatrists as a part of a vast conspiracy to dominate and harm individuals. By framing psychiatry as an external threat, Hubbard reinforced the insular nature of Scientology, bolstering his authority and the cohesion of his movement. Anecdotal accounts from his former associates indicate that Hubbard may have had negative personal encounters with psychiatric treatments, though these stories are often unverified. One notable account describes a supposed psychiatric evaluation that Hubbard found demeaning and ineffective, which may have further fueled his distrust and disdain for the profession. Here is a clip from Hubbard talking about psychiatry in his time in the Navy.
The war, I spent about a year in the hospital recuperating from an accumulation of too much wartime scotch and overdoses of lead and things like that, you know. Oddly enough, they gave me a psychiatric examination, as they gave all veterans, and found out that, by the way, that scared me to death. Scared me to death. I went in, took a psychiatric examination. When he finished up, he was very pleasant. He started writing. And when he finished writing 2 pages worth, very interesting, he finished writing 2 pages worth, you generally took your own records back to the ward. And I was watching this, you know, saying, well, have I gone nuts after all? And he took these 2 pages worth and put them in my folder. And I said very smartly and happily, well, I'm going right back to my ward. I'll take the folder back. He said, oh, no, it will be taken back by a messenger. Next morning after breakfast, I said to myself, Hubbard, think. So I thought for a while and all of a sudden realized that I had better cook up a toothache and get a dental appointment and have all of my records be given to me so I could take them over to the dental clinic. And I tucked them under my arm and I went out to the dental clinic toward that direction. It was a nice little evergreen sitting outside the door. It was out of public view, and as soon as I got near that evergreen, I just real quick and opened the records. Oh, here it is. This almost indecipherable scrawl goes on for 2 long, arduous pages. And I waded through these terrific technical terms, you know, read it all very carefully and got to the last paragraph, and it said, in short, this officer has no neurotic or psychotic tendencies of any kind whatsoever. So I sat down weakly on a bench and said, well, I have evidently survived it, you know, and I was feeling very, very good when at that moment a Marine walked up to me, took me by the arm, and he says, you have a dental appointment, and I have been sent to find you. So he took me down and filled a tooth.
As Dianetics gained popularity, it faced significant criticism from the medical and psychiatric communities, who dismissed Hubbard's theories as pseudoscience. This rejection likely intensified Hubbard's antagonism, leading him to double down on his anti-psychiatry rhetoric. L. Ron Hubbard's opposition to psychiatry is a complex interplay of his personal experiences, professional frustration, and psychological factors. While the precise reasons for his antipathy are speculative, it is evident that a mix of early exposure to harsh psychiatric practices, unmet career aspirations, health issues, and a need for control shaped his views.
In 1969, against a backdrop of societal upheaval and growing skepticism towards established institutions, the Church of Scientology founded the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, in Los Angeles, California. This organization quickly became a central figure in Scientology's ongoing battle against psychiatry, aiming to uncover and challenge what it views as abuses within the mental health field. The late 1960s were marked by significant social changes and increasing scrutiny of various professions, including psychiatry. Many people were questioning the effectiveness and ethics of psychiatric treatments like electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, and lobotomies, which were known for their severity and often criticized for their inhumanity. L. Ron Hubbard seized upon this climate of doubt to formalize his opposition to psychiatry. He and the Church of Scientology sought to highlight and combat practices they deemed detrimental to individuals' freedom and well-being. The CCHR was co-founded by Dr. Thomas Szasz, a well-known psychiatrist who was critical of conventional psychiatric practices alongside other key Scientology officials. Szasz's involvement lent significant credibility to the organization, aligning it with its mission to confront and rectify what it considered harmful practices within psychiatry. The Citizens Commission on Human Rights' core mission revolves around investigating and exposing alleged human rights violations within the psychiatric industry. This includes practices such as involuntary commitment, the use of ECT, the administration of psychiatric medications, which the organization believes infringe upon individual rights. CCHR advocates for reforms in the mental health system, aiming to protect individuals from what it views as a coercive and harmful practice. Ironic, huh? Additionally, it seeks to educate the public about perceived dangers of psychiatry, providing various resources to support its cause. The philosophical foundation of CCHR is rooted in the belief that psychiatry fundamentally misunderstands and mistreats the human mind. According to the organization, mental health issues should be addressed through non-psychiatric means aligning with Scientology's broader philosophy of mental and spiritual well-being. CCHR has been active in several major campaigns to promote its views and influence public opinion. It produces documentaries, books, pamphlets, and highlights alleged abuses in psychiatry. One notable example is the documentary Psychiatry: An Industry of Death, which presents a stark critique of psychiatric practices. The organization also operates traveling exhibitions to display information about the history of psychiatric abuses, aiming to inform the public and rally support for its cause. In addition to public awareness campaigns, CCHR engages in legal advocacy and investigations. It conducts inquiries into psychiatric practices, often reporting its findings to regulatory bodies and the media. The organization also provides legal support to individuals and families claiming harm from psychiatric treatments, assisting with lawsuits, and advocating for legislative changes to safeguard patient rights. CCHR's notable campaigns include a strong stance against the use of ECT, which it describes as dangerous, citing cases of permanent damage and fatalities. Another focus is the psychiatric drugging of children, which CCHR argues is excessive and harmful. The organization pushes for stricter regulations and alternative treatments. Additionally, CCHR has highlighted instances of abuse within psychiatric hospitals and institutions, advocating for greater oversight and accountability. The impact of CCHR has been significant, raising awareness about various issues within psychiatry and influencing public opinion. Its efforts have led to discussions about mental health treatment, patient rights, and ethics of psychiatric practices. However, the organization is not without controversy. Critics point to its close ties with the Church of Scientology, suggesting that its campaigns are driven more by ideological opposition to psychiatry than a genuine concern for human rights. Some mental health professionals dispute CCHR's claims, arguing that the organization's portrayal of psychiatry is misleading and that its proposed alternatives lack scientific support.
Over the decades, CCHR has embarked on numerous campaigns focusing particularly on the opposition to electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, psychiatric medications, and the use of psychiatric diagnoses in schools. These campaigns tell a tale of relentless advocacy and controversy. Imagine a procedure where electrocurrents are sent through the brain to induce seizures, all in the name of treating severe depression and other mental health conditions. This is electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT. To CCHR, the practice was not just outdated, but dangerous and harmful. The battle against ECT saw CCHR engaging in a variety of activities to make their case. Through a barrage of documentaries, publications, and online content, CCHR sought to illuminate the dangers they perceived in ECT. A notable documentary, Electroshock, Therapy or Torture, featured personal stories of those who claim to have suffered at the hands of this treatment. CCHR's efforts extended into the political arena, where they lobbied for laws to ban or heavily regulate ECT. They championed bills calling for tighter controls, mandatory injury reporting, and thorough patient consent. The organization delved into psychiatric facilities, compiling reports that highlighted cases of malpractice and patient harm. These reports were then forwarded to regulatory bodies and used to bolster their advocacy efforts. CCHR's relentless campaign brought ECT under greater scrutiny, leading to stricter regulations in some areas. Yet the psychiatric community remained divided, with many professionals advocating for ECT as a valuable treatment for certain conditions when applied correctly. The narrative shifted to psychiatric medications, particularly their use in children. CCHR argued that these medications were overprescribed with severe side effects and the potential for long-term health consequences. The organization disseminated numerous articles, pamphlets, and documentaries such as Dead Wrong, a psychiatric drug can kill your children, highlighting tragic stories linked to medication use. They staged public protests against pharmaceutical companies and psychiatric institutions, drawing media attention and public awareness to what they saw as the dangers of psychiatric drugs.
I'm John Geaver from MedPage Today at the American Psychiatric Association meeting in San Francisco.
Don't drug out kids, don't screen out kids, psych out kids.
For more years than many APA members can remember, the psychiatric profession has been the focus of a hate campaign by Scientologists. As in past meetings, this year's event was marked by a noisy street protest, as well as counter-protests by groups opposed to Scientology. I spoke with Dr. Neda Stotland, the APA's current president, about the impact on psychiatry and the association.
It's a matter of concern. While we do have data showing that people increasingly believe in the validity of psychiatric disorders and increasingly believe they're treatable, still when a movie star jumps around on a couch and tells people that psychiatry is bad, we worry about the patients we're already treating who are watching. We worry about the people out there who are suffering from psychiatric illnesses and will be scared away from effective treatment because of those kinds of allegations.
So what can the organization do? What has the organization done, and how effective has it been?
It's hard to know exactly how effective it is, except that we know that people increasingly feel good about psychiatry. I'm talking about the public. Increasingly think that diseases are real, and they don't think that if you're depressed, it's just because you're lazy or didn't pray enough or something. They understand it's a disease and it's treatable. That's really the tack we've taken, to put accurate information out there through the media and other venues, through our own website and so on, to counter allegations with fact.
CCHR provided a lifeline to families who claimed harm from psychiatric medications, offering legal assistance, helping to file complaints, and giving them a platform to share their experiences. They sparked a broader public discourse and influenced some policymakers to consider stricter regulations on drug prescription. Nonetheless, many mental health professionals continue to advocate for the responsible use of these medications as essential components of mental health treatment. In schools, psychiatric diagnoses like ADHD often led to medication and stigmatization. CCHR contended that these diagnoses were subjective and could cause long-term harm to children. To challenge the use of psychiatric diagnoses in schools, they launched educational campaigns targeting parents, teachers, and school administrators, highlighting the potential dangers of psychiatric diagnosis and promoting alternative approaches to managing children's behavioral issues. CCHR supported legislation restricting schools from mandating psychiatric evaluation or medication as a condition for attendance, and advocated for parental rights to refuse psychiatric assessments for their children without facing educational penalties. The organization also investigated schools and educational policies that promoted psychiatric diagnosis, publishing reports that highlighted instances where children were medicated without considering alternative treatments or the long-term impact on their health. CCHR's efforts brought heightened awareness to the use of psychiatric diagnosis in schools. In some regions, this led to policy changes that granted parents greater control over their children's mental health decisions. Despite this, debates persisted within the educational and psychiatric communities about the best ways to manage behavioral and emotional challenges in children. The Citizens Commission for Human Rights, CCHR, has orchestrated several major campaigns targeting practices within the psychiatric industry. Their opposition to electroconvulsive therapy, psychiatric medications, and the use of psychiatric diagnosis in schools reflect their ongoing mission to expose and combat perceived abuses in mental health care. While their efforts have significantly raised awareness and influenced some policy changes, they continue to be a source of controversy and debate among mental health professionals and the public at large.
The compelling documentary, Making a Killing, The Untold Story of Psychotropic Drugging, delves into the adverse effects of psychiatric medications. It highlights personal stories of individuals harmed by these drugs, promoting the idea that psychiatric medications are overprescribed and hazardous. CCHR has a prolific output of books and pamphlets designed to inform and warn the public about psychiatric practices. Titles such as Psychiatry, The Ultimate Betrayal, and Deadly Medicine are widely distributed. Additionally, magazines and newsletters like Freedom Magazine often feature articles on alleged abuses of psychiatry and the pharmaceutical industry. CCHR maintains a robust online presence through its official website, cchr.org, which offers a plethora of resources, including articles, videos, and reports on psychiatric practices. Their active use of social media platforms allows them to share content, engage with followers, and promote events, thereby reaching a global audience and fostering discussions on mental health issues. In Los Angeles, the Psychiatry and Industry of Death Museum stands as a permanent testament to CCHR's mission. The museum showcases the history of psychiatry through graphic displays and personal accounts of alleged malpractice, aiming to illustrate the field as fraught with abuse and pseudoscience. CCHR takes this message on the road with a traveling exhibition replicating the museum's displays. These exhibitions visit various cities worldwide, setting up in public spaces to attract significant attention and spread their anti-psychiatry message far and wide.
On Park this weekend, you might see the Dogwood Festival. You might also see a rather shocking exhibit separate from the festival that is intended to try to debunk psychiatry. It's supported by the Church of Scientology. Doug Richards is live there now with more. Doug?
Well, Cheryl, you would have to wander pretty far off the beaten path from the Dogwood Festival to get into Magnolia Hall here at Piedmont Park, where you would find an exhibit called Psychiatry and Industry of Death. And if you were to wander inside, you would find numerous images of sort of old school lunatic asylums. Over to the right, a little further over, you would find images of Nazi Germany. The proprietor of this exhibit says that this is not intended as an effort to pad the roles of the Church of Scientology.
On the right, that's a guy performing a lobotomy. It's the classic ice pick through the nasal cavity.
Pretty grisly, isn't it? When was the last time there was a lobotomy?
Oh, 1950, I don't know, 1955. Then, of course, it was outlawed.
But it's still relevant, in your opinion?
It's still relevant because it's part of the history and the evolution of this particular method.
Is it fair to call psychiatry an industry of death?
Well, it may be a little bit shocking, but then that's how you gain attention. Is there such a thing as ADHD? No. And
so you think these mental illnesses are baloney?
That's right. We do.
All of them?
All of them. It is, of course, right in line with the viewpoints of the Church of Scientology.
But Scientology and science are two vastly different things.
They're very, very slick.
Says the chair of psychiatry at Emory University.
We have evidence from science that there are treatments that work to help brain diseases. The Church of Scientology does not have that.
What alternative would you propose to psychiatry?
Well, I get asked that frequently. I would imagine that the Church of Scientology would be happy to be considered as one of them, quite frankly.
As an alternative to psychiatry?
Absolutely.
And do they keep your head clear mentally?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a happy life.
Deb McKay, the proprietor, says that the folks at Piedmont Park asked her to keep the exhibit separate from the Dogwood Festival, which is going on just outside of the Magnolia Hall, and will be here through Sunday. Live at Piedmont Park, Doug Richards, 11 Alive.
They also organized numerous protests and rallies against psychiatric institutions, conferences, and pharmaceutical companies. These public demonstrations are designed to attract media coverage and rally public support. Additionally, the organization hosts conferences and seminars featuring speakers, including former patients and sympathetic medical professionals who discuss the dangers they associate with psychiatric practices. CCHR actively engages in lobbying to influence mental health care legislation, advocating for laws that restrict and regulate psychiatric practices, such as ECT or the prescription of psychiatric drugs to children. They also offer legal support to individuals and families seeking action against psychiatric practitioners or institutions, helping to file complaints and supportive lawsuits. Impact through their extensive use of media, events, and public outreach, Scientology and CCHR have succeeded in raising awareness about their views on psychiatry. Their efforts have influenced public opinion and contributed to ongoing debates about the ethics and safety of psychiatric treatments. In some cases, their advocacy has led to policy changes and increased scrutiny on psychiatric practices, prompting investigations and resulting in tighter regulations. While their efforts have significantly impacted public discourse on mental health issues, they remain highly controversial.
In the mid-1970s, the Guardian's office allegedly launched Operation Freakout targeting Paulette Cooper, a journalist and author who had written critically about Scientology in her book, The Scandal of Scientology. The operation aimed to discredit Cooper by falsely accusing her of bomb threats and subjecting her to numerous harassment tactics. These tactics included planting forged documents, making threatening phone calls, and attempting to have her committed to a psychiatric institution. The ultimate goal was to make her appear mentally unstable. Operation Freakout was part of a broader initiative to infiltrate and discredit psychiatric institutions and professionals who criticized Scientology. The Guardian's office reportedly used similar tactics against psychiatrists as those employed against Cooper, including infiltration and the use of forged documents to undermine their credibility. Scientology agents allegedly infiltrated the APA and other psychiatric organizations to gather intelligence and disrupt their activities. These operatives attended conferences, accessed confidential information, and spread disinformation. Former Scientologists have claimed that agents posed as journalists, researchers, or even patients to gain entry into psychiatric institutions and organizations. The Church of Scientology reportedly targeted individual psychiatrists who were vocal critics. Tactics included filing frivolous lawsuits, spreading false rumors, and orchestrating smear campaigns to damage their reputations and career. The aggressive strategies were intended to silence opposition and dissuade others from speaking out against Scientology. In 1977, the FBI conducted dramatic raids on Scientology offices in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. The raids uncovered extensive evidence related to Operation Snow White and other covert operations. The documents revealed detailed plans to infiltrate and sabotage various organizations, including psychiatric associations. The legal fallout was significant. Several high-ranking Scientologists, including Mary Sue Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard's wife and head of the Guardian's office, were indicted and convicted for their roles in these operations. These events brought substantial public attention to Scientology's covert activities. In response to these revelations, the Church of Scientology claimed to have disbanded the Guardian's office, replacing it with the Office of Special Affairs, or OSA. The Office of Special Affairs was described as focusing on legal affairs and public relations in a more legitimate and lawful manner. However, despite this reorganization, allegations of covert activities and harassments against critics, including psychiatrists, have persisted. Former members and critics argue that the Office of Special Affairs continues some of the Guardian's office tactics under different guises. The Church of Scientology's alleged covert operations to infiltrate and discredit psychiatric organizations form a significant chapter in its history.
The saga of Scientology's fierce opposition to psychiatry is punctuated by a series of high-profile legal battles and incidents. These confrontations have often centered around the use of psychiatric medications and diagnoses, especially in schools and other public institutions. Let's take a look at some of the most notable cases that reveal the depth and intensity of this ongoing conflict. Ritalin, a stimulant medication widely prescribed for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, in children, found itself in the heart of controversy thanks to Scientology's Citizen Commission on Human Rights, CCHR. The organization vehemently criticized the widespread use of Ritalin, arguing it was overprescribed and harmful to children. In the year 2000, a series of class action lawsuits erupted across multiple states, including California and New Jersey. These lawsuits targeted Novartis, the manufacturer of Ritalin, the American Psychiatric Association, APA, and other organizations. The plaintiffs alleged a conspiracy to promote ADHD diagnoses and the prescription of Ritalin for financial gain. They claimed that ADHD was a fraudulent diagnosis created to expand the market for Ritalin and asserted that the drug caused significant harm to children. Despite the fervor and media attention these lawsuits garnered, they faced significant legal hurdles and were ultimately dismissed. The courts determined that the plaintiffs failed to provide sufficient evidence to support their conspiracy claims. However, the legal battles ignited a public debate about ADHD diagnoses and Ritalin's safety. Prozac, an antidepressant introduced in the late 1980s, became another focal point of Scientology's anti-psychiatry campaign. The CCHR claimed that Prozac caused violent and suicidal behavior, sparking widespread concern. CCHR launched a vigorous media campaign distributing materials that linked Prozac to several high-profile cases of violence and suicide. They called for investigations and tighter regulations on the drug. Multiple lawsuits were filed against Eli Lilly, the manufacturer of Prozac, by individuals and families who claimed the drug caused harmful side effects. CCHR supported these efforts, providing information and resources to the plaintiffs. Many of the lawsuits against Eli Lilly were settled out of court. The company steadfastly maintained that Prozac was safe when used as prescribed. Scientific studies and regulatory reviews generally upheld Prozac's safety and efficacy, but the controversy fueled ongoing scrutiny of psychiatric medications. Larry Willersheim, a former Scientologist, sued the Church of Scientology in the 1980s, alleging mental and emotional distress caused by Scientology practices. Willersheim's case highlighted the Church's broader conflict with psychiatry, as he claimed that Scientology anti-psychiatry stance exacerbated his suffering. In a recent interview with Janice Gillum-Grady and Mark Fisher, Larry Willersheim shared the following.
I was walking around thinking I was 2 or 3 different people. I literally tore down part of Fort Harrison's wall, outside the wall, and I was drinking excessively to try to stop the voices. I was near suicidal. I was looking for my handgun. Luckily, someone caught me at that time before I found my gun and said, "Oh, you just need a repair, another repair." And they gave me another Ned for OT repair, and I was still just batshit nuts. I mean, there was no two ways about it. My hair was falling out. I'm like 28, 29, and just clumps of hair are falling out. The girlfriend I had at the time, who was new to Scientology, looked over at me and she said, "You're dying. You look like you're dying. You need to get out of Scientology. If you leave, I'll stay with you." Her name was Karen Shepard. She was a black belt in martial arts, and she was really new to Scientology. And if it wouldn't been for her to say, "If you leave, I'll stay with you," I would have never been able to leave. Wow. But those words gave me, because I knew what would happen, like you declared SP, all your friends leave, all your employees who are Scientologists, because they were all Scientologists, you'd be declared, you then, they'd have to leave and quit the company would crash. My whole life would end, basically.
Right.
And so I said, "I'm really not doing well and I don't understand it, but you're willing to go with me. Let's go." And we took off in my Mercedes. We drove across country, and I hid for 6 months in a place in Upper Michigan. And I recovered enough to start to think maybe something wasn't wrong with me, but maybe something was wrong with what they did to me.
In 1986, a jury awarded Willersheim $30 million in damages, a figure later reduced to $2.5 million on appeal. The Church of Scientology fought the judgment for over 2 decades, navigating through numerous appeals. Finally, in 2002, the Church agreed to pay Willersheim an undisclosed settlement. In his own words, here's what Larry Willersheim had to say about his court case against Scientology.
You don't have to spend the millions of dollars that I spent in defense, or the $140 million. We estimate Scientology spent $140 million on the Willersheim case and still lost. That's why they don't do that anymore. You don't have to spend that, because any good attorney calls up Stephen Kent at the University of Alberta, gets the tort list, gets the document list, and says, send me this, send me this, send me this, send me this. And next thing you know, he's playing with the big boys and has got the strategy that already beats Scientology. And the saddest thing for me is that more people haven't realized it took 30 years to break that trail, but that trail's there for anybody. Why should I be the only one who gets $9.2 million for the trauma Scientology caused? To put my life back into order and have a decent rest of my life. Every ex-Scientologist should be getting paid and going through the justice healing process, because there's healing with psychologists, but an even more powerful healing is when you take the oppressor that oppressed you and you oppress them in the legal process and you win and you take their resources to restore and renew your life. That is justice healing that doesn't make you just whole. It makes you much stronger than you ever were when you were in Scientology, because you have turned that wound into a tempered, healed strength.
Wollersheim's case underscored the intense and often litigious nature of Scientology's interactions with former members and critics. It also spotlighted the Church's efforts to discredit psychiatric interventions and promote its own practices as superior. Jan Eastgate, the president of CCHR International, faced charges in Australia back in 2011 for interfering with the course of justice. The charges stemmed from allegations that she had coached an 11-year-old girl and her mother to lie to authorities about the girl's sexual abuse by a Scientologist. The allegations led to an investigation suggesting Eastgate had interfered with the police inquiry to protect the Church's reputation and avoid psychiatric evaluations for the child. The charges against Eastgate were eventually dropped due to insufficient evidence. Nonetheless, the case drew significant media attention and criticisms of Scientology's handling of internal abuses and its staunch anti-psychiatry stance.
To understand Scientology's war on psychiatry, one must first look back at its courtroom battles. Through the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, Scientology has strategically used litigation to challenge psychiatric practices and hold practitioners accountable. Scientology's legal battle often draws significant media coverage, which the organization leverages to spread its anti-psychiatry message. By framing these cases as fights against harmful psychiatric practices, Scientology seeks to sway public opinion and cast doubt on the legitimacy of psychiatric treatments. Moreover, the mere threat of litigation can deter psychiatrists and pharmaceutical companies from certain practices, leading to an increased scrutiny and regulatory oversight. Beyond the courtroom, Scientology and CCHR are active in the halls of power, lobbying for legislative changes that align with their views on mental health. While not all lobbying efforts result in immediate legislative changes, some have led to increased scrutiny and new regulations. For example, CCHR's campaign have contributed to the policy discussions on the safety and ethics of psychiatric treatments. Additionally, by mobilizing grassroots support, Scientology and CCHR amplify their impact, showing policymakers that there is a public backing for their positions. Scientology and CCHR often collaborate with other organizations that share their skepticism of psychiatry. These alliances strengthen their lobbying efforts and broaden the influence on mental health policy. By forming a coalition with like-minded groups, Scientology can present a unified front on its lobbying efforts, making it harder for policymakers to dismiss their concerns. The Citizens Commission for Human Rights organizes and participates in conferences and workshops focused on psychiatric reform and patient oversight. These events serve as platforms to advocate for legislative changes and build networks with activists and policymakers. Scientology's campaign have not been without controversy. Many mental health professionals accuse Scientology and CCHR of spreading misinformation and using fear tactics. Critics argue that Scientology's portrayal of psychiatric practices is often exaggerated or just inaccurate, leading to public misunderstanding and stigmatization of mental health treatments. Some suggest that Scientology's actions are more about advancing its ideological agenda than genuinely improving mental health care. The opaque nature of Scientology's funding and organizational structure further fuels concern about the transparency and integrity of their advocacy work. The Church of Scientology utilizes litigation and lobbying as strategic tools to challenge psychiatric practices and influence mental health legislation.
The Church of Scientology's opposition to psychiatry has profoundly impacted its members, particularly those who were in need of mental health care. Former Scientologists have shared their accounts of suffering due to the organization's anti-psychiatry stance. Here are a few of their stories. Lisa McPherson was a dedicated Scientologist who joined Scientology in the early 1980s. She was known for her vibrant and outgoing personality, and she fully embraced the teachings of Scientology. Lisa experienced a severe mental health crisis after a minor car accident in Clearwater, Florida. Her behavior became so erratic, and she showed signs of a mental breakdown. Instead of seeking psychiatric help, the Church of Scientology took Lisa to the Fort Harrison Hotel, one of their properties. They claimed she needed to undergo an introspection rundown, which is a controversial procedure meant to address mental breakdowns without psychiatric intervention. Over the next 17 days, Lisa was isolated and subjected to Scientology's practices. Her condition worsened, and she became severely dehydrated and malnourished. Tragically, Lisa McPherson died on December 5, 1995, while being transported to a hospital 45 minutes away. Lisa's death resulted in a high-profile legal case and significant media coverage. The Church of Scientology faced charges of practicing medicine without a license and neglect. Although the charges were eventually dropped, Lisa's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit which was settled out of court. Jeremy Perkins was raised in a Scientology family in Buffalo, New York. From a young age, he was taught to distrust psychiatric medicine and treatments. His story is highly specific and extreme. As a teenager, Jeremy began showing signs of schizophrenia and severe mental illness. His condition worsened over time, leading to delusions and violent outbursts. Jeremy's family, adhering to Scientology's anti-psychiatry stance, refused to seek psychiatric help for him. Instead, they relied on Scientology's methods, including vitamins, auditing, and alternative treatments. In 2003, during a psychotic episode, Jeremy fatally stabbed his mother, Ellie Perkins, who was a devoted Scientologist. The incidents highlighted the potentially deadly consequences of denying psychiatric care. Jeremy was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was committed to a psychiatric hospital. His case underscored the dangers of rejecting conventional psychiatric treatment in favor of Scientology's practices. Kendra Wiseman grew up in Scientology and was involved in the church from a young age. Her father, Bruce Wiseman, was the president of CCHR in the United States. As a teenager, Kendra struggled with depression and anxiety. Due to Scientology's teachings, she was discouraged from seeking psychiatric help. After leaving Scientology, Kendra sought psychiatric help and began taking medication for her mental health issues. She has since become an advocate for mental health awareness and criticizes Scientology's stance on psychiatry. Kendra has shared her story publicly, including in interviews and documentaries, to raise awareness about the harm caused by Scientology's anti-psychiatry stance. Her advocacy work aims to support others who might be suffering in similar situations. These personal stories from former Scientologists highlight the significant harm resulting from the Church of Scientology's opposition to psychiatry. Individuals like Lisa McPherson, Jeremy Perkins, and Kendra Wiseman have experienced severe consequences due to the rejection of conventional mental health care. These accounts underscore the urgent need for accurate information and appropriate treatment for mental health issues.
Many psychiatrists have faced criticism, harassment, and targeted campaigns by Scientology and its affiliate, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR. Dr. Thomas Szasz was a renowned psychiatrist known for his controversial views on psychiatry. His unique opposition as a co-founder of the CCHR alongside Scientology provides insight into their methods and strategies. Szasz's alliance with Scientology was rooted in the shared opposition to what they saw as coercive practices of psychiatry. Despite this collaboration, Szasz maintained an independent and often critical stance on many issues, even those pertaining to Scientology. Despite his collaboration with Scientology, Dr. Szasz faced criticism from both the psychiatric community and Scientologists. Many psychiatrists distanced themselves from him due to his association with Scientology, and Scientologists were unhappy with his critical stance on other Scientology doctrines. CCHR used media campaigns to spread negative information about Prozac, citing various cases of violence and suicide purportedly linked to the drug. This included distributing pamphlets, producing documentaries, and organizing public demonstrations. Numerous lawsuits were filed against Eli Lilly, supported by CCHR, accusing the company of hiding the dangers of Prozac. The targeted campaign significantly damaged the reputation of Prozac. Despite these challenges, scientific reviews generally upheld the safety and efficacy of Prozac when used as prescribed. Dr. Stephen Barrett is a retired psychiatrist and the founder of Quackwatch, a website dedicated to exposing health fraud. He has been a vocal critic of Scientology's health claims and their anti-psychiatry stance. Dr. Barrett has been targeted by Scientology through defamation campaign aimed at discrediting his work and reputation. He has been accused of various professional misconduct without evidence. Additionally, Scientology has threatened Barrett with lawsuits on multiple occasions, aiming to silence his criticism through legal intimidation. Despite the threats and harassment, Dr. Barrett continues to write and speak against Scientology's practices, advocating for evidence-based mental health care. His efforts have been crucial in countering the misinformation spread by Scientology and CCHR. These professionals have faced significant challenges, including smear campaigns, legal threats, and personal harassment, all aimed at undermining their credibility and silencing their advocacy for mental health. Understanding these experiences highlights the ongoing conflict between Scientology and the psychiatric community and underscores the importance of defending evidence-based mental health practices.
Scientology has produced a number of documentaries and media pieces designed to cast psychiatry in a highly negative light. Sensational cases and negative portrayals often get more attention, reinforcing public fears and misconceptions. The media's influence contributes to the cultural narrative that views psychiatry with suspicion. It can lead to sensationalism in reporting, which in turn affects how the public perceives mental health treatment. Scientology's efforts have contributed to a broader skepticism about psychiatric diagnosis and treatments. The skepticism can lead to stigmatization of individuals seeking psychiatric help, making it harder for them to receive the care they need. The increased public suspicion and stigma around psychiatric care can discourage people from seeking necessary mental health treatment, potentially worsening mental health outcomes. Through lobbying and advocacy, Scientology has influenced policy debates and contributed to the enhancement of laws that impose stricter regulations on psychiatric practices. For example, campaigns against electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, and the prescription and psychiatric medications to children led to increased scrutiny and regulation in some jurisdictions. While increased regulation can improve safety and oversight, it can also limit access to beneficial treatments. The legislative changes influenced by Scientology's campaigns reflect the complex balance between protecting patients and ensuring they have access to effective mental health care.
The Church of Scientology offers several alternatives to conventional psychiatric treatment rooted in the teachings of its founder, L. Ron Hubbard. While the organization claims numerous success stories from members who have experienced significant improvement in their mental health and spiritual well-being, these practices have faced substantial criticism and reports of failures from former members and external observers. This narrative explores these methods and their intended purposes. Two primary methods promoted by Scientology are auditing and the use of the e-meter. These practices are integral to Scientology's approach to mental health and spiritual well-being and are presented as superior to traditional psychiatric care. Auditing sessions are conducted by a trained practitioner called an auditor, who guides the practitioner, known as a pre-clear, through a series of questions and exercises designed to uncover and address engrams. During session, the auditor asks specific questions to help the pre-clear recall past experiences and confront the associated emotions. The process aims to reduce the impact of these negative experiences on the individual's present life. Scientology offers various levels of auditing, each progressively more advanced and aimed at achieving higher states of spiritual enlightenment, with the ultimate goal of reaching the state of clear, free from influence of engrams. Scientology claims that auditing can resolve a wide range of mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and trauma, by addressing the root cause at the spiritual level. Beyond mental health, auditing is promoted as a way to achieve spiritual growth, self-improvement, and a higher state of consciousness. The electropsychometer, or E-meter, is an electronic device used during auditing sessions to measure the electrical resistance of the pre-clear's skin. It claims to detect changes in the pre-clear's mental state. The E-meter consists of a main unit with a needle gauge, 2 handheld electrodes which the pre-clear holds during the session. The auditor uses the E-meter to identify areas of spiritual distress by observing the needle's movement, which are interpreted as indicators of the presence of engrams or unresolved issues. The E-meter readings guide the auditor in formulating questions and directing the session, helping to focus on the specific areas that need addressing. Scientology asserts that the E-meter is a reliable tool for detecting engrams and monitoring the pre-clear's progress in confronting and resolving them. The Church of Scientology presents the E-meter as a scientific instrument, although its effectiveness and validity are widely disputed outside the Church. Critics argue that there are no scientific evidence to support the effectiveness of auditing or the E-meter. The concept of engrams and spiritual cleansing lack empirical validation. Some suggest that any perceived benefit from auditing may be due to the placebo effect or the supportive nature of the counseling environment rather than the specific methods used. Some mental health professionals warn the auditing could be psychologically harmful, particularly for individuals with severe mental health conditions. The process of revisiting traumatic experiences without professional psychiatric support may exacerbate symptoms. Scientology's strong opposition to psychiatry can discourage members from seeking necessary medical or psychological treatment, potentially leading to undertreated mental health issues. Scientology's alternatives to psychiatry treatment, such as auditing and the use of the E-meter, are central to its approach to mental health and spiritual well-being. While these methods are promoted as superior and more effective than conventional psychiatric care, they remain highly controversial and are criticized for their lack of scientific basis, high cost, and potential psychological risks. Understanding these practices is crucial for evaluating the broader implication of Scientology's stance on mental health treatment.
Many Scientologists report significant improvements in their mental health after undergoing auditing. They claim relief from conditions such as depression, anxiety, and trauma by addressing the underlying engrams through the auditing process. For example, a member might recount how auditing helped them overcome severe depression by uncovering and resolving traumatic incidents from their past, leading to a renewed sense of purpose and happiness. Reaching the state of clear is often cited as a major success. Individuals who achieve this state claim that they experience enhanced mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual enlightenment. Testimonials frequently highlight the transformative effect of being clear, describing it as a pivotal moment that profoundly improved their quality of life and self-understanding. Scientology courses on communication and personal ethics are reported to improve interpersonal relationships and professional success. A member might attribute their career advancement and improved family dynamics to the skills learned during this auditing and related courses, emphasizing the practical benefits of these teachings. Many members find a strong sense of community and support within Scientology. The shared goal of spiritual growth fosters a supportive environment that can be emotionally uplifting. Members often describe feeling understood and supported by their peers, which contributes to their overall sense of well-being and personal fulfillment. The cost of auditing sessions and advancing through the levels of Scientology can be prohibitively expensive. leading to financial strain on its members. Critics argue that the church exploits individuals financially. Numerous former members have reported spending tens of thousands of dollars on auditing and related courses, only to face financial hardship and the disillusionment with the promised benefits. Former members describe a high-pressure environment where they are encouraged to continue purchasing auditing sessions and courses. This pressure can create a sense of obligation and guilt if they are unable to comply. Some ex-members recount feeling coerced into taking on debt or sacrificing personal finances to keep up with the demands progressing through Scientology's levels. Scientology's strong opposition to psychiatry can discourage members from seeking necessary medical or psychological treatment, leading to untreated mental health issues. There are accounts of individuals who, following Scientology's teachings, avoided psychiatric care for serious conditions, resulting in worsened medical health and, in some cases, tragic outcomes such as suicide or severe psychological decline. Understanding both the claimed successes and reported failures provides a comprehensive view of the impact of Scientology's mental health practices.
Let's take a look at psychiatry in the present. Electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, is still used today, though it is not as widely employed as it was in the mid-20th century. ECT is primarily used to treat severe and treatment-resistant mental health conditions, such as major depression disorder, bipolar disorder, and some forms of schizophrenia, especially when other treatments have failed or when rapid response is needed. ECT is much more regulated and refined than in the past, with significant improvements in safety and effectiveness. The procedure is usually performed under general anesthesia with muscle relaxants to minimize discomfort and prevent injury. Electrodes are placed on the patient's scalp, and a controlled electric current is passed through the brain, intentionally triggering a brief seizure. The seizure activity is believed to cause changes in the brain chemistry that can provide relief from severe psychiatric symptoms. While ECT can be highly effective for some patients, it is typically considered a treatment of last resort due to potential side effects, including memory loss, confusion, and other cognitive changes. These side effects are generally temporary, but in some cases they can be more persistent. ECT is still used today, but it is applied more judiciously and with greater emphasis on patient safety and informed consent. Advances in psychotherapy. Developed in the 1960s and 1970s, DBT has become one of the most effective and widely used therapies for a range of mental health conditions. Created by Marsha Linehan in the mid-1980s, dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, is particularly effective for borderline personality disorder. These approaches, including mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, have gained popularity since the 1990s for treating depression, anxiety, and stress. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, DSM, and the International Classification of Diseases, ICD, have undergone several revisions, improving diagnostic criteria and reliability. The DSM-5, published in 2013, and the IDC-11, adopted in 2019, reflect the latest scientific understanding. Advances in MRI, fMRI, and PET scans have improved our understanding of brain structures and functions, aiding in the diagnosis and treatments of mental disorders. Research into the genetic basis of psychiatric disorders have advanced, leading to insight into the heritability of molecular underpinnings of conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and autism. Starting in the mid-1950s and 1960s, there was a significant shift from long-term institutional care to community-based treatment, improving the quality of life for many patients. This model, developed in the 1970s, provides comprehensive community-based psychiatric treatment, rehabilitation, and support to individuals with severe mental illness. These models integrate mental health services into primary care settings, improving access to psychiatric care and promoting holistic treatment approaches. There has to be a strong emphasis on patients' rights, informed consent, and ethical treatment practices, ensuring that patients are active participants in their care. Efforts to reduce stigma associated with mental illness have increased, promoting greater public awareness and acceptance. The use of telemedicine to provide psychiatric care has expanded access to treatment, especially in the underserved areas. Mobile apps and online platforms for mental health support therapy have become more prevalent, offering new ways for individuals to manage their mental health. These advancements have collectively transformed psychiatry, making it more effective, accessible, and humane, significantly improving outcomes for individuals with mental health disorders.
Let's take a minute to speculate about the future conflicts between Scientology and the psychiatric community. Given Scientology's history using litigation as a tool against psychiatry, it is likely that future conflicts will include legal battles. Scientology may again support or initiate lawsuits against psychiatric institutions, practitioners, and pharmaceutical companies, particularly focusing on issues such as alleged malpractice, overprescription of medications, and patient rights violations. There also may be an increase in class action lawsuits supported by CCHR, particularly involving families and individuals claiming harm from psychiatric treatments. These lawsuits could target specific medications, treatment practices, or policies that Scientology deems abusive. CCHR will likely intensify its lobbying efforts to push for stricter regulations on psychiatric practices and medications. This could include advocating for more rigorous consent requirements, tighter controls on the use of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, and further restrictions on prescribing psychiatric drugs to minors. As digital platforms continue to grow, Scientology and CCHR will likely expand their online presence, using social media, websites, and virtual events to spread their anti-psychiatry message. Scientology is expected to increasingly frame psychiatric practices as human rights violations. This strategy aims to align their anti-psychiatry stance with global human rights movements, potentially gaining support from international human rights organizations and activists. Future conflicts may center around ethical debates concerning psychiatric practices, with Scientology highlighting cases of perceived ethical breaches in psychiatric care to garner public support and drive policy changes. Scientology and CCHR will likely continue to expand their international efforts, participating in global conferences, forming alliances with like-minded organizations, and influencing mental health policies in other countries. Future campaigns may target specific countries with known controversial psychiatric practices, using these cases to fuel global advocacy efforts and apply pressure on international regulatory bodies. The psychiatric community is likely to counter Scientology's claims by emphasizing evidence-based practices and the scientific validity of psychiatric treatments. Professional organizations and researchers will continue to publish studies and reports to refute misinformation and educate the public. Regulatory bodies may respond to Scientology's campaigns by enhancing oversight and transparency in psychiatric practices, ensuring that treatments are safe, ethical, and evidence-based. This could include more rigorous licensing requirements, regular audits, and stricter enforcement of existing regulations. Efforts to protect consumers from misleading information and fraudulent claims about psychiatric treatments will likely be strengthened, potentially leading to legal actions against organizations that propagate false information. Legal precedents set by past and ongoing litigation could shape future conflicts, with courts potentially becoming more cautious about claims made without scientific evidence.
In theory, Scientology's strong opposition to psychiatry can also be viewed as a protective measure to maintain its coercive control over practitioners. Scientology teaches that psychiatry is not only ineffective but harmful, branding it as a pseudoscience that suppresses individuals' true potential. By discrediting psychiatrists, Scientology aims to prevent its followers from seeking psychiatric help, which could lead them to questioning their beliefs and recognize the organization as a coercive control cult. Psychiatry, with its emphasis on individual mental health and critical thinking, possesses a great threat to the strict ideological conformity and hierarchical structure that Scientology relies on to maintain its influence and authority over its members. Here is a clip of Hubbard in his own words.
You think that you're okay, huh?
Well, I don't know that I'm okay any more than anybody else is okay, but I at least live a happy life and a very full one. I have a happy marriage, and my kids are all cheerful, and nobody's finding any fault with me, personally.
Do you ever think that you might be quite mad?
Oh, yeah. The one man in the world who never believes he's mad is a madman.
Thank you for joining us as we conclude today's episodes of Sins of Scientology. I am Abraham Ulrich, and along with Sandy McKenna, we hope you found this deep dive into Scientology's battle with psychiatry as enlightening as it was compelling. We've journeyed through the roots of Scientology's vehement opposition to psychiatry, explored the evolution of its strategies and rhetoric, and examined the ongoing campaigns that continue to shape public perception and policy. We've also shared the heart-wrenching stories of those affected by Scientology's stance, including the tragic case of Lisa McPherson, which starkly illustrates the potential consequences of rejecting conventional mental health treatment. As we continue to uncover the truth behind Scientology's controversial practices, we've remained committed to bringing you detailed, factual, and insightful narratives. Our dedication to providing you with accurate and thought-provoking content is unwavering. These stories are not just about religious organizations, but about real people whose lives have been profoundly impacted. The fight between Scientology and psychiatry is not just about differing philosophies, it's about real lives, real families, and real consequences. If you found today's episode informative, please subscribe and leave a comment. Your feedback helps us bring you more of the content that you care about. Also, don't forget to share this episode with friends and family who might be interested in learning more about the hidden truth of Scientology. If you'd like to support us further, consider joining our membership program. Stay tuned for more episodes of The Sins of Scientology, where we will continue to uncover the hidden truths and untold stories behind one of the world's most secretive organizations. As always, keep questioning, keep seeking, and may your journey be as rich and enlightening as the stories you encounter. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, we urge you to seek help from a licensed medical professional. Remember, there is no shame in seeking the care you need.